Hello and welcome to today's CEPro webinar entitled The Ultimate Guide to Winning More Commercial Business. I'm Jason Knott, editor of CEPro, and I am excited to be moderating today's discussion. The goal of today's discussion is to dig deeper into the commercial market landscape and give everybody a sense of where the opportunities might lie in the market coming out of COVID-19 and the pandemic situation. We're also going to talk a little bit about how both the residential and commercial integration companies can differentiate themselves when you're out there trying to get commercial business and win more jobs. So that's going to be a real key takeaway for you in today's session. Today's session is sponsored by SAVI Controls and LG. I want to thank SAVI and LG for sponsoring today's session. We wouldn't be able to bring you these educational events without their support, so thank you again. So before we jump into the meat and potatoes of today's conversation, a couple of quick housekeeping items. For those of you who are new to our platform, we use the Global Meet platform here on CEPro, and you should be hearing me clearly. I hope you are hearing me clearly. If not, please check your audio and because it's a streaming audio stream. There is a question mark in the upper corner of the Global Meet interface, and you can test your microphone there. If you're having other problems and it's just not being resolved, you can try disconnecting and rejoining the event, and sometimes that works, and you might get a better stream of audio. But hopefully you are hearing me clearly. The other housekeeping item I want to touch on is that this is an interactive event. So we want to hear your questions. We're going to have time at the end for Q&A. On the left side of your screen, there's a box that says Ask a Question. I'm going to be monitoring those questions throughout the session, and then we're going to present those to the panel as they come in. Hopefully we'll get to all the questions. If not, then everybody on the panel is going to get those questions, and we'll be able to respond to you personally. I'm going to answer the very first question right now that I know is going to come in, which is this session going to be available? Yes. So this is being recorded, and it will be available for replay up on CEPro.com in about 24 hours. By the way, there's also, if you have questions regarding technical issues, we have our technical person monitoring the event, and he will be able to help you hopefully get in if you're having any technical problems. All right. With me today and this distinguished panel is Derek Wilson. Derek is CTO at SAVI Controls. Hi, Derek.
Hey, Jason. How's it going, man? Really happy to be here.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Also with us is Byron Baird. Byron's Vice President of Sales at SAVI. Hi, Byron.
Hello, Jason. Hello, everyone. Super excited to do this today. Looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Thanks for being here. Next up, we also have Craig Rathbun. Craig is Key Account Manager, LG Commercial Display Division. Hi, Craig.
Hey, everybody.
And last but not least, Peter Kim. Peter is LG Team Leader, Solution Ecosystem. Hi, Peter.
Hello. How's it going? Glad to be here.
So I've been pre-warned by this panel that it's kind of going to be like herding cats with them because they are very active and everybody wants to talk. So we are going to try and keep it moving, but it's going to make for a great and lively discussion today. So before we jump in to talking about how you can win more projects and simplify your proposals, I wanted to give a little bit of a landscape look at how the commercial market is doing right now. So this is data from our sister publication, Commercial Integrator, that showed 59% of integrators actually commercial integrators had lower revenues in 2020. You can kind of see in the pie chart there the percentages that they were down. And then I reached out to the National Systems Contractors Association this week, and they told me their membership, the average is between 10% and 20% drop in revenue. So let me just kind of get a first take on this. Byron, you're out there talking to integrators on a daily basis. Does this kind of jibe with what you're hearing out in the marketplace?
Yes, definitely. And especially if we view that through a Resimercial lens, I would say for those Resimercial, as we love to call them, dealers out there, that integration space is seeing sort of this pivot to more residential, a little bit less commercial, obviously due to the conditions that we all know are going on out there. And at the same time, I would say, there's just some reticence for a lot of businesses even if you're maybe listening to this session today and you're only a commercial integrator, there's some reticence there to spend, but we are seeing, and I think we'll probably get into this a little bit more, a pent-up demand that we believe is there in the commercial space.
Yeah, absolutely. Craig, let me have you riff on the same question. You're out there talking to integrators and seeing the market conditions. How does this look compared to what you're hearing?
Well, let's just say conversations are a lot more positive at this point in 2021 than they were a year ago. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of unknowns. I think as we exited the year, there was obviously the impact of what the what the COVID virus had done to businesses of all sorts, and our products go into all types of venues and formats. So, yeah, there were definitely winners and losers, but overall, you're right, Jason. The overall market for commercial product was down.
Yep. And we're going to talk a little bit about the optimism that's out there. So obviously, the big question as to why it's going on in the marketplace. We all kind of know what's happened from a COVID standpoint. We directly asked in the survey, what the effects of COVID were on their businesses. 2/3 of integrators said it did have a negative effect. But again, there was a good chunk there where they didn't really have an effect. And in fact, looking ahead into 2021, as Craig mentioned, we can see signs of optimism. This is we queried the readers as they're heading into 2021, what do they think the effects of COVID is going to be? And it's interesting to look at these numbers. 10% actually say that it spurred their business. And this is on the commercial side. The resi side, we're going to talk about a little bit later, which we all know got a real shot in the arm from this. Right. But this is on the commercial side only. And then a lot of them saying no. Even going forth, it's not going to have any effect. And let me say this: the integrators tend to be a very optimistic bunch. I've been communicating with them for 20 plus years in this position, and I remember even in the depths of the recession in 2009, and that was when we had reports of their revenues dropping 50+% that year. They were optimistic, in the middle of the recession. So there's always been kind of an optimism out there. So let me just, again, kind of riff. Byron, let me start with you, and then I'll turn to Derek. What are you hearing from optimistic? Craig's already said he's hearing optimism. Are you hearing the same thing?
Yeah, definitely. I would say anecdotally, in the interactions that we have, that 10.2% that you show there from the respondents, it's markedly higher than that. And even here recently, I'd say in the last approximately month, for the month of February, we saw an uptick in activity level of just dealers calling our sales team, and opportunities where the purse strings, I suppose you'd say, are starting to loosen from the end user client spending perspective. So I would see that just as being experientially from what we're seeing, hearing, talking with dealers, commercial and Resimercial, higher than what that number reflects there.
Oh yeah.
Derek, same thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, what's been going on, obviously due to COVID, nobody's going out into the world right now, which is very obvious. But there's so much pent up tension with that it's on the verge, and everybody right now, that uptick is happening because the uptake is in just pure planning mode. So everybody's getting ready to be out into the world because everybody is just really looking forward to getting outside and communicating with people now. So even though we're still normal, we're still not quite there yet, but still everyone's just really in this planning mode. And that's why the uptick is happening, because there's designs going on. There's a lot of talk going on with, getting businesses back going once this starts to die down.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me kind of flip the page a little bit. Byron kind of hinted at something I wanted to talk about, and that's that residential guy who is moving into the commercial space. This is data from CEPro. We kind of coined this term Resimercial. We're hearing that a lot out there, and that's that what is Resimercial? It's the common areas of an MDU, the fitness center, or the lobby. It's the small corporate boardrooms. I've heard from some integrators where any of the corporate boardroom situations where it's fewer than 5 boardrooms, the residential guy is getting that job because it's perennially just been too small of a project for a large commercial company. Obviously, bars and restaurants, which has been in the wheelhouse for integrators for quite a long time, houses of worship, and then kind of a new area, home studios, and of course, work from home environments. You know, we're doing a specific study just getting out right now, talking specifically, we're going to try and get a pinpoint on how many of these work from home setups these guys have been doing. You know, in many cases, more than one in a home. You've got not just, you know, the husband or the wife working from home. You've got the kids learning from home. So you're setting up multiple scenarios inside the home. Right. So again, Derek, let me ask you this. This is really in the wheelhouse of SAVI, where you guys have that simplified scenario, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, but really in the wheelhouse of that residential guy trying to bring a simplified solution to the commercial space. Again, reiterating what Byron said, is this what you're hearing?
Oh yeah, I can see this happening for sure. I mean, what's happening is the uptick in residential is just skyrocketing. So as the residential guys are installing these systems, they're getting very lean and mean with their designs. So and the commercial aspect is going, since it did go down, now they're really focusing on, okay, what's a very powerful system that I can get, but on a budget, you know, because let's just be real, that side of the industry is kind of, you know, it's more budgetizing things than it ever has before. So the residential guys, they're going really lean with their designs, and they're transforming that into commercial. And you've nailed it. I mean, that's actually exactly what SAVI does. We have just streamlined and simplified the programming, so you can do really small systems and really big ones, and we can take away that intimidation of commercial to where these Resimercial guys can just come in and just, you know, dominate the market.
Yeah, Craig, let me ask you to weigh in here. I know, you know, you're in the commercial side of LG, and LG obviously has a vibrant residential side too. But what are you hearing in terms of seeing projects or outreach from a traditional resi guy doing commercial projects?
Well, I mean, I'm going to approach it a little tiny bit differently, but I'm going to try to talk about some segments that are non-traditional, because that's really what COVID has done to us. It's, you know, at the end of the day, the SAVI team, the LG team are about putting digital billboards up that have content on them, right? And different ways to manage content. And what's happened is the content needs have changed of the, you know, of the commercial user. So where it might have been digital signage a year ago, now it's about capacity. It's about rules of entering a facility. It's about, you know, the head count, the body count of how many people are inside, capacity, elevators, conference rooms, all those things. So again, at the end of the day, it's still, you know, digital endpoints with content on them, but the way you're approaching the content, I think, is a big deal for you if you're going to go in and really understand the pain points of these customers. The second area, which is very non-traditional, is in that, you know, video teleconferencing has been around forever, but these new hybrid environments, we're seeing people put in both education and corporate conferencing hubs, where there are multiple screens in a hub that will show you your whole Zoom team, right? And their images are more lifelike in terms of scale and size. So you feel like you're really looking, instead of looking at a 2-inch, you know, little headshot, you're standing in a room with 20 people on the screens, and their heads are 12 inches on these large screens. So all of a sudden you're surrounded with what feels like a virtual audience. And you take that and blend it to hybrid, where schools, corporations are dealing with mixed workforces of virtual and on-premise resources, and it's a whole new way of collaboration. And so, you know, hopefully some of those concepts are things that can help these audiences, help these integrators, you know, think bigger than just going in and putting a sign in, you know, a digital billboard at the back of a conference room for running PowerPoints.
Yeah, that's a really great point, that, you know, the workplace of 2021 and beyond is going to change to be that combination of in-person and remote. And I love that scenario you just laid out there of versus huddling over a laptop to talk to somebody, really having an immersive environment. In fact, you're kind of leading me into my next slide here, which is just the diversity that we're seeing in the space. And, this is just something that we had asked the integrators of what were some of the unique applications that they were starting to see and opportunities come out of COVID on the commercial side. And you can see, the list there. I'm not going to read through them, but everybody can read through them. But let me kind of turn back to you, Derek. This kind of works right into, again, the wheelhouse of SAVI, because it's building kind of an ecosystem platform that's not just about controlling digital signage, but maybe pulling together lots of other functionality into the display.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because, and I'm going to kind of go back to the commercial or the residential / commercial dealers, the Resimercial, as we keep saying. But, when you're dealing with a home, you're doing all kinds of things. You're doing audio, video, garage door sensors, lighting. You're doing even audio. You're doing paging systems in a house. And with this list that you're seeing, with the Resimercials getting into this area, it's almost the same thing, just with a little bit of different technology. So you have the thermostats, the temperature sensing, the Teams virtual calls, the digital signage, plus the video distribution and the audio distribution. So it's kind of that same thing where we are building that ecosystem where it lies under one roof, which is SAVI, instead of each one of these being an individual system. Right now, you don't have your digital signage being on its own, and your audio distribution being on its own, and your video distribution being on its own. We combine all of them together to make it easier for the installer and the end user.
Right. Peter, let me bring in the technical guru here. Peter, on some of the platform, the technologies that are out there that are beyond just traditional digital signage, some of the technologies at play, what are some of the things that we're seeing there that from a technology standpoint that is allowing digital signage to do some of these various applications?
Absolutely. So since the pandemic hit us over the last year or so, we've really seen an uptake and interest from our customers to utilize digital signage in different means, right, to portray different information and help them really administer the health and safety protocols to help them communicate that with their customers. So we've seen some of our solution partners really test the limits of a digital signage integration with integration with other sensor-driven technologies and devices, whether it's using a camera to track opacity, even a gesture sensor to mimic a touch environment without having to actually physically touch a digital screen, and also temperature reader sensors, right?
Yeah.
So that translates to really a widened use case for digital signage, where it's still a digital sign conveying information to consumers, but it's for different purposes. And as a result, we've also seen a couple, digital signage taking a slightly different look and feel to meet those demands and challenges. So a couple examples would include like the mobile digital A-frame carts that's used for queue management outside of a store that communicates the topology, right, of how to enter that space, and also hand sanitizer kiosks in public areas.
Yeah, and it's so cool on what Peter was talking about with having sensors in front of the TV. A lot of times when you're walking in retail, we could have a full video distribution up, like with a DirecTV playing or whoever the service provider is. But then when you walk past this TV, that DirecTV goes into a small window, and now there's signage that appeared. And from a customer standpoint, I just triggered that TV to do something. So there's that really cool effect that draws you into the business. And that's kind of what Peter was just talking about, where they're taking it to a whole nother level that has the customer interact with it, and they don't even realize they're doing it, which is really cool with what webOS can do.
So Craig, let me ask you, what Peter just described, does that mean we're seeing applications that require more signage and different size signage and different location? We're also used to seeing the digital signage up high and large screen. Is it going smaller and more frequent? Is something like that changing?
That's a good question. I think that's going to vary by segment. I mean, the beauty of what we're all talking about here, especially with SAVI, is the biggest change we've seen is, I'm going to call it ROI or ROO, but just the value that they're placing on this investment, right? This backbone to manage the content, the operation of your system, and what's the output? What is the goal of the output, right? Has changed from ads that drive sales revenue to health, protection, traffic flow, communication about safety, and all these new objectives have hit this. And the beauty is, SAVI can take the LG canvases and change on that objective on a dime, and reinvent your content distribution. So with that, all of a sudden, I think we drive the value of the platform up. So I don't know if these smaller spaces mean more displays for necessarily the hand sanitizer and the specific opportunities, as much as the value of a communication network has been expanded. And I think that's always good for more endpoints at distribution. But I mean, specifically, it gets down into different public use cases. Any place they've got public traffic, so schools, corporations, and retail, all have a different set of mixes in terms of what their evaluation of productivity is, and that drives different screen counts.
Yeah,
Jason.
Yep. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say real quick. I think it was Derek that threw out a term, webOS. Just to retrench on that real quick, we might have Peter. Yeah, Derek just threw that out there all of a sudden, like everyone would know what that was.
Yeah, like people understand that.
Right, and some people may, but others may not. But SAVI has a feature that we call Canvas, and amongst other cool things we could say about it, it is very tightly integrated with webOS on the commercial side of the LG house. And so I don't know, Peter, if you might want to just give a quick description of kind of what webOS and SoC tech is and what that means to people if maybe they're not familiar with it.
Sure. So you may actually be more familiar with the webOS on our residential TV side, but as the name suggests, it is our operating system that powers our displays, smart displays. And on the commercial side, we've actually, completely revamped and customized that same platform, but to make it more, secure and useful for commercial environments. So that's our platform that's resides on our smart display product on the commercial side, and SAVI is a partner of ours who developed a solution to work on top of that platform.
We essentially figured out they had a really cool thing in webOS on the commercial side of their business at LG, and we built some tech that's very tightly integrated with it. And, it gives you the ability in Resimercial commercial type integration where you can leverage the TVs, or in the commercial world, we should properly say displays, as more than just watching TV. And of course, we've alluded to a lot of examples of that, but there's also just the aspect of spreading content to those displays that the typical end user customer of a lot of different vertical segments doesn't necessarily always attribute the fact that, oh, I have network cables going to these smart LG webOS displays that run this SAVI thing that we call Canvas, and I can do this whole world of content display, and I don't have to build out a different piece of technology engine in the back. It's just sort of there, and it all integrates seamlessly.
So let me ask a quick follow-up on that. One of the other elements of digital signage is the potential for recurring monthly revenue for the content, controlling the content or managing the content. Does the SAVI system enable you to also either the integrator or obviously the end user to insert and control that content and earn the recurring revenue potentially?
Great question. So there's a few different angles by which you can approach this as an integrator, depending on sort of your comfort level or technical knowledge level on the digital signage side of our world. We don't have an engine built in per se that does that, like you would think of a digital signage true platform. Think of what SAVI Canvas brings is like graphical content display. And then as the sophistication level of the user sort of increases and their needs are greater, that's when you would bring in a full-on CMS or digital signage. But at kind of a basic entry level, yes, we do enable some things like that. But then you have a platform that allows expanding that even to more needs for the customer.
Oh yeah, and when you hear digital signage, you think extreme measures, data analysts and corporations uploading their content. You have to show exactly what's being played at what time, but it doesn't have to be that intense every time. So what we provide is just a really simple way to deploy content to the LG displays. And it's weird when you first which we're going to show you guys a little in Creator in these slides, but when you first get a feel of how easy it is to deploy video distribution and digital signage on the same screen, you're hooked. It's really fun to do, and you're just hooked. You realize how simple it is, and then you just keep wanting to add more images and more images. And then the owner of the place is like, I want to do a menu here. I want to do an ad here. I want to do a bar specials here. I want to do this. It just grows so fast. It's fun to watch.
All right, let's keep moving. I want to touch on a couple other quick pieces of data here, and this is again kind of reiterating and reinforcing what we were talking about earlier about the diversity element side of where the projects are headed. This is the backlog for 2021, what integrators have in their pipelines. Then you can see it's kind of across the board. It's not just digital signage anymore. It's not just audio and video anymore. It's really integrating all these different areas. And again, Derek, I'll swing back to you. This really is kind of this diversity and this element of bringing in all these disparate elements into a single interface is really where SAVI kind of can shine.
Oh man, you nailed it. Do you want to work for SAVI actually?
I'm not savvy enough, I think.
Dang it. No, yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah. And again, the commercial world, it's treated with different separate segments and companies. So like I said before, the lighting is its own system. The digital signage is its own system. The IT is its own system. The AV is its own. And you're right. We put it all together to make it easy for the end user to utilize it. And it's even easier for the dealer to pull or to program these systems as well. And with all these different separate systems, the way commercial usually goes, it's just overwhelming to the customer because they now have to have this login for this piece, this login for this piece, this login for this piece. But with us putting it all together, there's just one thing you have to control, which is nice for them.
Although, just to clarify, we're not integrated with a whole lot of corporate phone systems yet.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I don't think. Just to clarify that.
Yeah.
Well, there's your next task, right? So, all right, let me turn back to Craig. You mentioned some of the verticals earlier. You talked about education. You talk about the corporate world. This is again some data showing what integrators expect to be healthy going forth, and it's kind of a hard chart to read because all the colors are really, really close together. So I put little numbers next to the top ones there. What's your take when you just kind of your first reflect on these stats? Anything surprise you?
Yeah, no, it's yeah, it does, and I think it's a sub set of the group we're talking to, right? As opposed to large scale integrators and different sizes of integration. I think this actually reflects well on where I think this group will see a lot of opportunity, because I think this is where a lot more of their relationships are. I wouldn't expect a smaller integrator to have a tremendous amount of corporate relationships. And I'm going to go right back to what Derek said. All of those separate control systems for lighting and sound and display and all those different things, that's the way it's always been done. That's the way the people who are in those decisions are used to doing it. And for this Resimercial category, I think you're going to deal a lot of times a lot more entrepreneurial mindset, because these albeit somewhat smaller companies, but they're smaller companies that are trying to become big companies. And I think if you're able to go in there and make the total system, they're not tainted by the past as much, right? I think they're going to be more open-minded, and I think they're going to see the value of this SAVI integrated system much faster. And so when I look at these buckets, I mean, entertainment, absolutely. Actually, I'm surprised the bar and restaurant one isn't a little higher up, because it's a major pain point, but I'm not sure if they know it or not in that pain point. But education, yes. I mean, we're seeing a lot there. There's a lot of dollars in the background going to help education, grow and improve. The only one in this trade that's a little bit surprising to me is the hospitality industry, the hotel industry. That one is just all these industries are fueled by their rebound dollars, by people coming back to use them, and just from what we hear in travel, airports, airlines, and hotels, and just people being on the road, that one might be a little more of a laggard. But otherwise, I think this is right in line with where the market's going.
Okay. All right. I want to touch on, this is a really cool slide that SAVI had provided to me that shows a SAVI application at Topgolf. And so, Byron or Derek, I'll direct it to you, Byron. If you want to refer to Derek, go for it. But tell us a little bit about SAVI's relationship with Topgolf, and what exactly is the SAVI system doing at these Topgolf locations?
Sure. So SAVI's relationship with Topgolf in the sense of the technology that we deliver. Of course, SAVI, we're a developer manufacturer of AV control and automation products. We're sold exclusively through authorized dealers. Topgolf is an end user client of SAVI and has been for almost 10 years now, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So sort of the magic that SAVI brings to the Topgolf guest experience is this idea of integrating video, audio, lighting, recurring theme here, into one really easy to use control platform that's incredibly accessible, because SAVI is a web app, so I can use it on a modern device, as we often say. It just means an iOS, Android, tablet, phone, computer, laptop, etc., in a browser. But I can also save it to my home screen, so it's very app-like. So if you were to go into a Topgolf when things are rocking and rolling, on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, you would have staff and management, etc., making changes really quick and snappy to the systems, where we can change channels. We can rearrange that view of what you see there in that layout that we love to call the tri-pane on the LG portrait displays. And part of that magic is it's all one single Ethernet cable that goes to all of these displays. So it reduces a lot of failure points. It cuts down on our low voltage cable plant. It's a really incredibly easy to use system. And then also a little tech detail that Derek might want to take and go further with is there's back-end integration. SAVI has, kind of on the tech side of things, a REST API. So we can actually do some really cool integrations to have automatic changes and different effects to the system based on events that are happening in the Topgolf system that's their proprietary gaming systems.
Oh, yeah. And this is another example of how easy SAVI is to use. So Topgolf has about 100 to 200 employees per venue. And that's a lot of people. And when you walk into a Topgolf, it is just overdriven with technology. I mean, there are hundreds of displays, hundreds of audio zones, all kinds of ads, content, everything's just going on at once. It's really exciting, really energetic. But you have about 100 to 200 employees that use SAVI. And it's just not, it's very easy to train them. They can flip channels, change audio zones. People buy out the venues and they can display their logos all across these hundreds of TVs in a matter of minutes. And it's just, it's awesome to watch everybody just consistently use SAVI. So even though that's just a tech giant of a venue, there's hundreds of people that use SAVI every day with ease. It's pretty awesome.
And I'll just add one other thing, too, to kind of combine the previous slide with what we're sort of talking about here is among all those different categories of vertical niche markets, I think one was called entertainment. And we're seeing a huge uptick in different entertainment concepts that are being sort of incubated right now. And so if you have that kind of a facility, the technology that SAVI with our Canvas feature brings to the equation, there's really nothing else out there in the market like it. And it's that whole magic of the single cat cable to the LG webOS display that, we can drill down into that when we talk to some folks, after. But I mean, it's really, really cool stuff. And there's a video case study out there that's all about just how SAVI works in the Topgolf environments.
And it's wise that you position the screens where they are so that the inevitability of me hitting one of those screens with one of my golf shots is lessened. So good positioning there. All right. Let's get into the rubber meets the road conversation, and I want to turn the next few slides over to Derek to run through specifically what we talked about, what we promised everybody at the outset. What can they do? How does SAVI simplify the design, installation, and programming, and then how can they portray that simplification in a proposal to their customer base? Go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, well, I mean, the biggest thing that we offer, kind of like what Byron was talking about with the single Cat 5, it's just far fewer lines of product. So you can go into these places, and sometimes we were working with a SAVI dealer 2 or 3 days ago. I can't remember what day it was, but they were they presented the SAVI project to the customer, and there was a lot of repeating things, but there were not a whole lot of products into this system. And they get a lot of feature sets that come along with it. So there's less points of failure, and from a customer standpoint, technology can be overwhelming. And with the fewer the products that offer them a best bang for their buck, that really helps them. So so it's really nice so that the dealer can show them that there's just not a whole lot of products, a whole lot of different types of products that really need to be put in here to run your business. And also having them think about their business. So it's different when you're in someone's home. They come home from work, they turn the TV on, they watch TV, they enjoy it, then they go to sleep. But when you're implementing these systems in a bar, restaurant, entertainment venue, there's profit that comes in and out. So really, it's just pointing out those details, how the tech can help run their business easier and simpler. And just like we talked about with Topgolf, the training, it's just so little training to do for employees. So the fact that they could run their venue with ease just right off their phone is a big winning point for them, because it's just easy for the end users. And then to develop SAVI, to actually program SAVI is even easier. So whenever you're dealing with these businesses, it's very deadline based. Like they want these things open as fast as possible so they can start getting in the revenue. So the fact that with the programming is so simple, utilizing SAVI and the install is so simple, it just streamlines that process so that they can open on time to fit their deadlines.
So it's easier to program, but so it sounds like it's so apparent to the customer that it's simpler. Again, not just from the interface standpoint, but just that the list of equipment is going to be shorter. So there's fewer. It's less expensive conceivably. It's simpler and less points of potential breakage. Do you want to run through this Creator for a second?
Yeah, and back to your point, so even this screen that's up right now, so you have your sources on those blocks on the left. They go into, and we're encoding those signals on the network. So typically you'd have your commercial display. I'm going to say that one more time. Commercial display. Highly recommend using commercial displays like LG webOS displays. I'll get to that in a second. But there's no box behind the TV to deliver that video. So what you have is you have your SAVI server, your inputs, your video distribution piece, and everything else just is over one Cat 5 off the network. So this one Cat 5 going into the display, you get video distribution, you get content delivery, and control. So these things can turn off and on, you can change the channels, but you can deliver those ads. And the reason why I was saying commercial displays is because commercial displays are rated for long hours of the day. And consumer displays are meant to turn off at night and are on at night and off at night. So they're on for a very short amount of time. So we're going to repeat this a few times, but that's the beauty of the commercial LG displays, is that they're rated for long lasting hours.
Well, Derek, just want to step on that with one more thing too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a commercial display tells you how it's feeling. So from a health and diagnostics management standpoint, you can't ever get that with a consumer product. And that really helps put it over the top, because I will say one of the properties that SAVI manages has multiple thousand displays. And many times the SAVI team is able to identify a screen failure before the property actually knows they have a failure. And they're contacting them to say, hey, we're going to be out in a couple of days and replace that because you've actually got a screen down, in this location. And they, totally delights the customer.
Yeah, it's awesome. And that's where Creator comes in. So this is actually how you program the systems. It's just very straightforward. These are our macros that you're doing. We're actually doing things a little bit different. You have your open and close scenes. That when you, in the morning time, you want your venue to set up a certain way, and at night you want it to turn off. So instead of going through each individual line by itself and saying, I want this TV to turn on at this time, and I want this channel to be set on this one, and then go down 50 TVs one at a time, we have the customer set up exactly how they want to do it. And then you can just press one button and we'll bring in all of those settings to create your own macro, which makes it really streamlined and fast to deploy. And then as you can see, our software is kind of easy on the eyes. So setting up different layouts on a display is really simple. So you can just pick and choose these boxes, choose what you want them to go to, hit save, and you're done. So, and this is kind of a list of the LG displays that we have inside our software. So whether you're programming one display or 200, we have these check boxes that you can check one or you can check all of them. And as soon as I check all of them, let's say I want to set them to, vivid brightness. Whenever I check all of the displays and set them to vivid brightness and I hit save, it just instantly deploys it to all those TVs instantaneously. So it's really cool, the fact that you can just streamline this programming to make it really easy for the installer. That way, programming these systems, it's literally just takes an hour or so, depending on your size project, but it's not days worth of programming. It's just hours worth of programming, which makes it really nice.
Yeah, we have a great example of that recently that I don't think we've alluded to here yet. I just spoke with a dealer in Austin, Texas, not that long ago, a few days ago, and they had their folks go through the technical training, which we do a 2-day virtual hands-on remote training from a technical perspective learning. And they actually did their first SAVI job. The programmer swooped in, had just less than a day to get everything done from start to finish. He sat down, programmed the system, tested, debugged things, verified everything worked, and documented things, made sure the customer understood how to use it, and he was out the door in like a half day or less.
Yeah.
And to some people, that sounds like, is that even possible? And with SAVI, with particularly SAVI Creator from the dealer programming side, that's the kind of efficiencies we're enabling for the integrator. And we've all heard the old phrase of get in and out of jobs and be efficient about it and profitable. And that's one of the things, practically speaking, that we're enabling there with Creator.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And this is kind of what Craig was alluding to, which I'll get to the next slide. But the interface it's kind of in front of you, and it works on any platform. So if I can have all the metadata right in my hands on my phone or iPad or computer, so I can see exactly what is on every display, what is playing in all the audio zones, what lights are on. I can control the display, so everything's right here on your phone, which makes it really nice. But this is what Craig was referring to. So we do system status reports on this, so I can actually see what is exactly playing on every display. So this is a few examples of you can do full screen video for distribution. you can shrink that down into a section, and you can do Red Bull ads, or, you know, marketing for your own restaurant or bar. You can do drink specials. And this is what I was talking about, when the end user and the dealer realize how easy it is to make those layouts that you see on the screen, you are hooked. Then it's just, you just start putting up every image you can instantaneously. Some of it will actually be personal images of them, just because it's just fun to put up really quickly. So, and what Craig was describing earlier, it's nice because we get the status of what's going on. So if a TV goes out in your restaurant or bar, wherever it is, we can get that information ahead of time before the customer. So it saves everybody time and money as far as how fast we can fix these, because it's inevitable. Technology is going to go out. But when it does happen, we can handle those fixes really, really quickly.
We do call that the dashboard within Canvas, by the way.
Very sleek. Okay. Let's jump into some questions that have come in, and some of you kind of already answered, but I'll kind of riff off of one that was, you mentioned already, Derek, just a few minutes ago, about something that might take days is going to transfer to hours from a programming standpoint. So it sounds like it's kind of, you know, not too far-fetched to say you're going to deploy this or program this system in over half of the time that it might take for a traditional system, another system.
Absolutely. And the reason why it saves so much time is because we do little things like, for instance, if I'm doing somewhere that has 20 displays or even 100, we have an add multiple. So you set up one driver just the way you want it. You know, I want to name it Bar 01 or Lobby 01, whatever the application is. As soon as I can add, and I set up all the settings, so the IP address, you know, what settings I want for the display, and I can hit a button that says add multiple. And we have two settings in there. One that will relabel them automatically, and the other one that will copy and paste but increment the settings. So if I set it for Bar 01 and I have 30 TVs in there, I can increment that name. So when I hit add multiples, it instantly does all of the programming to those displays to Bar 01, 02, 03, 04. So setting up 100 displays is no different than setting up one display. And so that time right there saves hours that you're not having to go to each individual display to do it. We take care of it instantaneously with just a few button clicks.
Yep. Let me spin off of that question a little bit and ask you, some, you know, manufacturers who have, you know, programming has come a long way from where it was 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, where it was just, you know, these lengthy specialized spaghetti code that had to be acknowledged, you know, by a real specialist, even third-party programmer. But do you recommend that integrators use that labor savings as an advantage to get the job? Because some manufacturers will say, look, we're saving you time on the back end, but we're not necessarily telling you to go to the customer with a quote unquote less expensive alternative. What's your advice there?
100%. Byron, you got this one.
Yeah. So I would say, to whatever extent the integrator wants to pass on those cost savings, you know, they can certainly value price from a fixed value pricing standpoint, their labor and engineering services and programming services. But yes, I mean, I would say if you're a small, medium-sized integrator, that's a tool in your kit to actually win business. Whereas sometimes, you know, in the past, when there weren't systems out there like SAVI to compete with some of the other control automation platforms, you know, you just didn't have a tool to go in and say, hey, here's a cooler, newer, fresher alternative. And oh, by the way, it's a 20 to 50% cost savings overall, you know, and an X amount cost savings on the labor. Just to give you like another practical example, we have some sites that are being deployed now with a major restaurant bar chain, the name of which we would all recognize. But anyway, they were actually able to realize for the whole system bill of materials build out a $25,000 savings with the SAVI system using Canvas, whereas they had deployed many of another system, a few others that they had tried actually over the course of years. And they all of a sudden, got engaged with us and realized that once they built out the whole bill of materials for the job, that they could realize it was about a 10% savings.
Yeah. And you would think, they cut that out. But what happens in commercial is they budgetize. So they're like, oh, we need to spend, 100,000 or 50,000 or 20 to whatever that number is. So when you save them money, you would think they're like, oh yeah, we're just going to put that in our pocket. They're like, no, what else can we add? So then they start going, wow, I have $30,000 now. So then they want to do a video wall. They want to do all kinds of more product in their, whatever the application is, to make it pop that much better. And then the fact that we're saving so much time on the back end for them, you're able to meet those deadlines, program that stuff faster. So even though they add more, you're just not adding a huge amount of labor to your project. So it's weird how that works on them budgeting.
Video walls are a huge growth area. I don't know for folks listening today what you're seeing in terms of video walls, but direct view LED, multi-TV video walls, video tiling, we really didn't even focus that much on. SAVI, just with our Canvas feature on webOS, we can do 4 decoded streams over the network from those encoders and the network switch, like Derek had his diagram earlier. And so you can get a 2x2 video wall tile effect, and there's no extra charge for that. And you'll see us have other features kind of in that same vein. And we've brought also the control of those different types of video walls right into the SAVI UI. So if you have that 50 TV distributed environment and you have this feature piece of a video wall here, super easy to pop in and control that video wall in SAVI.
Hey, Byron, it's Craig.
Go ahead, Craig.
And we just eliminated 2 other different disparate brand products being put into the total topology that are points of failure, that are slightly different, are not integrated because they're made by someone else. Like in the simplest form, guys, you take an LG display and you put anyone's media player on it. It can talk RS-232, but codes have to be programmed, handshakes have to be vetted. They all are connected by a cable that can fail. When all that gets built into one product by one brand, all of a sudden what Byron and Derek are talking about is there's no place else to look for failure points. And that savings, that assurance you put into this topology is priceless. And only the people who truly understand the before and the after can share the cost savings, because they're the ones who really are the only ones who know how much easier this is. And I can vouch for these guys. I mean, this is a gray area for us. And until the customer told us how much they were saving by putting an integrated solution in, and how much less worry, less break fix, less problem solving. If something does break, there aren't 3 phone calls to make to get it replaced or fixed. There's only one. It's a huge peace of mind and a value savings that you can monetize to win deals.
Yep. And time and tech is money these days. When that tech goes down, the businesses lose money. So you want to be able to handle it very quickly. And the longevity of these products is just super important. Using commercial rated displays is going to save you so much time and money down the road, to bounce off Craig's point.
Let me clarify something. We some of the examples we showed here, Topgolf, the bars and restaurants. Derek, you were referring earlier to, the bartenders are going to come in and the obviously shuffling employees who are going to need to know how to intuitively run the interface. Topgolf is going to be a customer to run it. Let's clarify that this system isn't just for entertainment or hospitality type venues, because there is value in a corporate environment and other some of those other verticals we talked about.
That's absolutely right. And, I think you had, in addition to thinking about corporate, like you said there, Jason, you had hospitality as in hotel common spaces, as well as MDU common spaces are a huge area of opportunity that we see for Resimercial types of dealers out there, because they're very local market driven oftentimes, and they're often very, budget conscious. and they need a system that's very solid and efficient, and you can strip away the time of deployment and strip away extra costs and bring all of this feature-rich set of things to them in the system. That's a huge market where we see opportunity. But corporate, yes, absolutely. Different types of corporate for distributing video of all different types, marketing messaging of different types, corporate messaging, et cetera. Yeah, I mean, sometimes we gravitate to the shiny, cool, flashy things like entertainment, sports venues, places like Topgolf, but absolutely, SAVI can equally as well handle all those different verticals you had on that really colorful circle chart earlier, just as well as it can one the next.
Peter, let me direct this one to you. Somebody's asking, where technologies like 5G, 8K, we know LG had rollable TVs they showed at CES a few years ago. Are those sorts of things going to change the commercial market, boost the commercial market? Does it affect a scenario like this? A topology have to change in some way, or is it just all, par for the course, and these things are to get integrated into these commercial projects seamlessly?
So 5G or better connectivity options in general, I do believe, and we do see that as a market that will continue to grow. Now, whether that's a short-term effort to address with a display hardware or more of a mid to longer-term effort is still in debate, even internally. However, I do definitely see that picking up.
Yeah, it's definitely an exciting time from that standpoint. All right. We've got other questions here about mistakes and that they should avoid and things like that, but we're going to have to save those because we are bumped up against the time. And I want to, again, remind everybody who listened and watched today that this webcast recording will be available on CEPro.com within the next 24 hours. So you'll get a notification of that fact. And I want to thank Peter and Craig and Byron and Derek for joining me today and the very informative conversation. And go out there and win some commercial projects, everybody.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.